Welcome back to Half Moon Tech Labs. Today I have a video that's by popular request. I've had a couple people ask recently if I could do a video on watch battery replacements. Now there's all kinds of different watches. Now I have an array here in front of me. I also have a bunch of different prying and cutting implements and all sorts of things, which we'll get to in just a second. What I want to show, oh, that's good. What I want to show you is the different types of watches first off. Now this is obviously not everything. I'm going to briefly run down the different types of watches and how you'd go about changing the batteries in each. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to briefly, here, let's open up. This is an old solar watch. This is mine. I'm going to first pop this little pin. Usually there's a little pin that you can, there we go. These little spring pins. We'll let you do this. Okay, there we go. Now you can see with this particular watch, this is the type that unscrews via a spanner. So there's basically a special wrench or tool that you would use to lock into these little depressions here and then spin the back off. If you're like me, there's another method. If you don't have that tool, you can very carefully use a set of needle nose pliers. You have to be careful so you don't stab yourself, but basically push and turn at the same time. You'll see that we can unscrew that. There we go. There we go. And inside, you can see the battery. Okay, so that's one type. I'm not going to be doing anything with this watch today. I just wanted to show you that type of watch back closure, if you would. Put that back on. And nice and snug. There we go. So there's the type that has the spanner back on it. And we'll reassemble that later. Okay. Here's another couple of watches. My wife is a swimmer, and so she goes through a lot of these. She just buys cheap watches because these things take a pounding when she's swimming, and she doesn't want to screw up an expensive watch. So when she swims, she just uses these cheap watches. Here's the Timex Ironman. I'm not saying anything bad about this particular type of watch. These work good, just not fancy or anything. But in this case, you can see it has screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. And obviously you would simply take a Phillips screwdriver, a small one like what you'd use from an eyeglass case, and you would remove these 4 screws in this case. On this one, 1 right there, 1, 2, 3, 4. You would simply back out those screws. This would simply lift off, and again inside you'd see that battery captured inside the little circuit inside. We're going to put that aside. I'll show you another one. Here's a Sketcher that she also uses, and the Sketcher, same idea. It has 4 screws. You remove the screws. Again, the back will simply pop off. You don't have to use a special tool other than the screwdriver to remove those 4 screws, and you're in business. Okay, the type of watch that seems to give people the most problem are these. So here's an example of the Timex. This Timex, there are no screws. There is no provision for a spanner to unscrew it. And that's because this type of watch back is more like a lid that simply snaps on. It's a very snug fit, and these things can be difficult to get off because the first thing you have to do is figure out how in the heck to pry the back off without screwing up the watch or you or anything else around you. And so with this particular Timex, which I am going to open, I'll show you. Here there happens to be I don't know if you can see that. There's a little tiny, right next to Timex is a little arrow that's pointing up here. And it's going to be difficult to capture on camera, but if you look at it with the naked eye, what you're going to find is right here. Let's see if this works. you'll find a little lip that you can get a knife under. I don't know if you can see that or not, but basically follow that little arrow to the edge and you're going to find that they engineered in a small tab that sticks up ever so slightly. It's only a few millimeters wide, maybe half a millimeter tall, little tiny thing, but that is where you would put a blade under and simply pry it open. Okay, but you want to do that without hurting yourself, so I'm going to put on some PPE. I'm going to put on some cut-resistant gloves. If you don't have this stuff, well, I'm taking a risk because if you slip with a knife doing this, you could damage yourself. But anyway, in this case, let's see. Got a handful of various cutting implements here. Let's open up this Benchmade, see if this does it. So I'm going to simply get underneath that edge. Let's do this. Try to get under this edge that we identified and simply... Oh, nope. The knife doesn't want to get under there. Try this little smaller blade here. Find our reference spot, our little triangle there, little arrow if you will. Get under there and see if we can simply pop that open. Stubborn. Let's try this. This is why you want to wear eye protection. This is a thick razor blade. This is the type you'd have in box cutters, like this. Okay, and I'm going to get under there. Okay, this I can actually feel it going under. I'm going to go under and then pry it up. Ow. Ah, there we go. Well, that seemed to be the ticket. This Harbor Freight fake dental tool thing. We just got an edge under there and pried it, popped it up. Okay. You can see inside. Here's the battery. It's a Sony CR1216. So I'm going to set that aside. We're going to gently pop this battery out. I'll just use the same tool here. Be careful. Sometimes there are little clips and little holders and tabs and things in there. You don't want to tear those off. You want to make sure there's nothing else in the way, and then just simply flip the battery out. Now, before I flip that out, I did take notice of the fact that the plus was pointing up at us. That's typically the case. So to put the new battery in, put you aside. Got some new 2016s right here. I'm sorry, 1216s. And we'll take one of those. And I'm going to check the voltage on this real quick. You don't have to do this part. This is just something I do. I like to make sure that the battery is in good shape. Sometimes from the factory, they're dead. 3.285. That's good voltage for a lithium cell. So made sure the battery's good, and I'm simply going to drop it in and snap it back in place. That's it. Right off the bat, you can see that the movement is active again. There we go. Now the fun part is putting it back on. Now all you have to do is press, but you have to press very evenly. You also have to be careful of where the Sometimes there's a notch in this case that goes around the stem. In this particular watch, there is not. So it really doesn't matter how we pop this back on. So I'm just going to put it back on like so. And then the trick is to lay it flat. Make sure there's nothing underneath the crystal of the watch. Make sure there's nothing bumpy underneath whatever you're laying it on. You don't want to have any uneven pressure on the crystal, because the next thing you have to do is you have to snap this face back down on there. And what I usually do is put something flat across there and then just push straight down, nice and even, all at the same time. All right, I found something that's nice and flat. The back side of these wire cutters, there's a nice flat spot right there. There we go. You can see it snapped right on. Make sure there's no gaps all the way around. Good. Okay, watch is working. Crystal's not broken. That's a win. All right, there's one watch. All right, let's see if this other one's a little easier. The other one was pretty difficult. That Timex is super tight. Now this is just a generic watch. It's not even branded. I think she bought this at Target years ago. Again, just a cheap watch, but we're going to change the battery here. So let's take a quick peek, see if we can find. Again, this one has a little, it's hard to see, but there's a little, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. There's basically a, so if you have the watch back, excuse the drawing here, but there's going to be a very, if you look at it very carefully, there's going to be this little tab about that big, just a little tiny thing that juts out in one place on this backing. Now I can see it here. It's going to be hard to pick up on the camera, but basically I can see it's right here. And underneath that tab, there's a little tiny gap that doesn't exist anywhere else around here. That again is what we're going to target. So again, PPE on. And let's try the random knife again. Get underneath that. You can kind of feel when it slides under. There you go. Oop. Maybe that's not going to get under there easily. If you have an eye loop or something, you can make a little, okay, I can see it's opposite the, so I just took a little eye loop and examined it, and it's right opposite the word bezel right here. So I'm going to really concentrate my effort right there. And I'm just, that blade's just not going to get under there. So let me try this chewed up, there we go. Just rotate. There we go, popped right up. So don't use regular razor blades. They'll just splinter. Again, this is why it's important to use PPE, like, you know, gloves and glasses. If you're going to be prying with a razor blade, right off the bat, I'll just admit that's a bad idea typically. But if you have the PPE for it, and it's one of the thicker blades, you see this is chipped up. Those little chips go flying, and they go somewhere, right? So make sure they don't go in your eye. But again, we were able to get that off. And let's pull this off. And there we are. We can see the battery again inside here. There are no holder tabs or anything weird in there, so I'm just going to flip this battery out, paying attention to which way is up. Okay, again, positive is facing me. I'm just going to flip the battery up and out. There we go. So what do we have here? This battery is a 377, I think. Yes. So this is a 377 battery. Let's give this a quick test also, just to make sure. Put you over there. Turn on our voltmeter again. And looking for 1.55 volts nominal for this particular battery. This is a silver oxide battery meant for watches specifically. So I'm going to touch that. And 1.591. Good hot battery. Beauteous. Let's just make sure we're oriented the right way. Just push it in. And the watch is already ticking. Beautiful. Now on this one, very important. Sometimes there's little O-rings around here. There usually is an O-ring around there. Make sure that it's clean. And then look for that tab. You can see this. In this case, there's a little bit of a notch on the inside of this case. Now, like I was telling you on the last one didn't have this, but in this case, very important that you get that lined up directly over the watch, the kind of the fake winding stem on these electric watches. They're obviously not there to wind, but to change the time and for other functions, for like, you know, the light activation and things like that. So you want to make sure that that notch goes directly over the top of that stem, because that relief is milled in there so that you can get it back on. And there we go. And we're going to lay it down. Again, making sure that there's nothing underneath that crystal that's going to cause a problem. And we're just going to press the back on until it, I'm just pushing straight down and just rocking around like this ever so gently. Boom. Heard it go click. This one is way easier. No gaps. Everybody's happy. Watch is still ticking. There we go. So we just changed 2 watch batteries on one of the more difficult to change types that have the pop-off back. And there it is, warts and all. That's how you do it with just off-the-shelf tools that you might have laying around if you wanted to try to do it yourself. Again, important that if you're going to be using blades to do this, do wear gloves, something to protect yourself. Do wear some PPE to save yourself from the little flying bits of metal that could come off that. You saw it happen live here. Basically, these little pieces of metal, you don't want that to land anywhere like in your eye or in a place where somebody can pick it up on their feet. So when you're done, clean it all up. But there you go. That's a quick and easy way to, I don't know about quick and easy, but that is how you can change your own watch battery in the type of watches that have a pop-off back. Again, the screw types and the spanner types, way easier to deal with, but that's not the type that we're always seeing out in the wild here, unfortunately, especially with these cheaper watches. So that's how you do it. Anyway, hopefully that helps and answers the question on how to change your own watch battery in that type of watch. Thanks for tuning in to Half Moon Tech Labs. We'll catch you later.